house has a terrifying history, and we only just found out about it. Me and my parents recently moved into our new home not far from our old. The owner sold a big house for a cheap price, and we were happy to buy it. When I first walked in, I smelled something rotting. My parents didn't think much of it until I found a whole bunch of dead rats in the basement. When I told my parents this, they were disgusted and didn't want me to go down there anymore. I sensed something in the house since I came in, and my gut told me to tell my parents, but I didn't, because they are strict and would suspect me of going down into the basement again. Me and my friends tried a Ouija board, but didn't find any luck down there. One of my mates suggested the other room, like the bathroom or the living room. We did the living room first, and after we went to the bathroom. When I entered the bathroom, I saw something and got shivers down my spine. We put down the board, and this time, it started doing weird stuff, like moving without effort. We found a ghost named Eliza, and she drowned in the bathtub when she was 5. We later asked about this, and the old owner confirmed this. To this day, I'll never know why my parents didn't find out the history before purchasing the house. I work in a movie theater. I'm usually the cashier, but sometimes I have the responsibility of cleaning the theater. Anyways, one night, my boss told me that I would be responsible for cleaning because some of the staff went home early. I was a bit annoyed because I was super tired and time was already 12:34 a.m., but I needed the money, and I only needed to clean 3 theaters. I packed up my cleaning supplies and made my way to Theater 12. I opened the door and started sweeping up all of the popcorn. I then started wiping the seats. I then used a bucket to throw away all the empty cups. After 15 minutes, I was done. I packed up all my supplies and started walking towards Theater 16. I cleaned up all the spills and popcorn grease that was on the seats. After 20 minutes, I was done cleaning. I then walked to Theater 4. I opened the door and started sweeping up the popcorn on the floor. As I was sweeping, I heard a giggling sound. Right when I looked up, the giggling sound stopped. I looked around, but I didn't see anybody. I then yelled, "Is anybody here?" But no one answered. So I yelled, "No one is supposed to be here." I was getting annoyed, but I decided to forget about it and started wiping the seats in the first row. After a few seconds, I heard the same giggling sound again. There and listened. At this point, I was pissed. The giggling sound slowly started turning into cackling. I was creeped out, but I was also mad. I yelled out in an angry voice, "Who's there?" But I got no response. I started walking up the stairs, and as I was walking up, the cackling sound got louder and louder. As I was walking up, I was getting more and more scared. I started thinking of the worst case scenarios. I was no longer mad because of all the anger was replaced with fear. Right when I got to the 10th row, the cackling stopped. I was super freaked out. I held my breath so I wouldn't make any noise. I started to turn around because I was really scared and wanted to get out of that theater. Right when I turned around, I heard the cackling sound again. I turned back around and looked up the stairs, but I couldn't see anyone or anything. It was too dark. I started walking back up the stairs. Eventually I made it to the last row, which was the 16th row. There was a small gap between the behind the seats and the wall. I was about a 1-foot gap. The crackling was so loud and obnoxious, I turned my head to look into the gap. It was dark, but I could still see the face of a creepy guy. He was crouched down and staring up at me. He had a big smile on his face. Right when we made eye contact, he stopped cackling. He raised his finger up to his lips and whispered, "Shh." After that, he said loudly, "Boo!" Right when he said that, I screamed. I turned around and ran down the stairs. He tried to grab me, but he missed. He chased me down the stairs. He was cackling and screaming. I eventually made it to the big wooden doors. I opened them and closed them in his face. I ran to one of the employees and told him about the man. The employee called the police. A few minutes later, the police arrived and went into the theater. 5 minutes later, the cops came out with a man in handcuffs. The man was cackling and screaming. He was wearing dirty clothes and had greasy, long hair. Turned out the man was a serial killer. He had killed 5 total people. He was planning on killing me too, but I escaped. I quit the job a few weeks later. I still have nightmares about the man. I'm just glad I escaped. When I was a child, a poltergeist shook my bed uncontrollably, and it scared me so that I would never forget it. I've thought about this ever since I was 6 or 7. I'm 39 now. But the moment was so terrifying that it has stuck with me all these years, and replays in my mind so vividly that I will never forget the moment, play by play. So when I was little, like 6 or 7, I was laying in bed trying to sleep for the longest time, but I couldn't. I remember looking at my digital clock and saw that it was just a little past 3 a.m. And the way my bedroom was located in my house at the time, I could look through my doorway, through the hall and into the den/TV room, where my dad was watching TV. My whole room was dark, with the exception of minimal amount of light that was coming from the den where my dad was. Then, all of a sudden, I got the sudden urge that something was wrong or about to happen. I was scared, so as children do when they're in bed and are scared, I covered my entire body with my sheet. After I did this, I felt as though and sensed that there was a face or a pressure right over mine, just on the other side of the sheet. Then, all of a sudden, my bed started to jolt and shake violently, as if there were 6 or so people underneath, full on kicking the underside of my mattress on all 4 corners and the center, as if they were on their back and had a full leg's length to do so. All 4 corners as well as the center of my bed were being jolted up and back down the box spring. Again and again, the bed was being jolted and shook. And I knew I wasn't dreaming or imagining this, because it went from that happening to me physically standing up on my bed and getting a running start on the bed, to then land on the hallway. I then went straight into our den/TV room where my father was, but all I could do was look and stare into my dark room and know that at some point I was going to have to go back in there and get into the same bed. I was terrified. To this day, I remember it as if it were yesterday. Never did find out if the house had something die in it while they lived there. Still makes me wonder about it. In this case, I have to lean towards the supernatural, as being will cause my bed to shake, because there were a lot of other things about that house that were off-putting, to say the least. It was creepy in a ghost demonic way. I would never want that to happen to me now. Surprised I'm not in therapy now. From what happened then, has this ever happened to anyone else?